Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana Jamuna Tiravanachari Jamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Janavalabha Girivaradhari Jai Gopi Janavalabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Praja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Praja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Praja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana Munatiravanachari Jamunatiravanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Shri Shri Gaura Nitai ki jai, Shri Shri Krishna Balarama ki jai, Jai Gau Premanandi Hari Hari Bol. Shri Swarup Mahotsav ki jai. Om Jnana Timarandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaham Shri Chaitanya Manobhistang Stapitang Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So today is a very special day, Vishwarup Mahotsav, also the day that Srila Prabhupada took sannyas initiation in Mathura from Keshava Maharaj. I will be doing a little reading from the Lilamrita, which is full of nectar for anyone who has not read the Lilamrita. It's just so full of very descriptive and presenting Prabhupada with a view, especially not only meeting his spiritual master in 1922, taking initiation in 1933, Prabhupada, after accepting that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur is the right person to spread the message of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and he was taking shelter of the instruction of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. Just a fortnight before Srila Bhaktisiddhanta left this world, he wrote another letter back to Srila Prabhupada and telling him that you should spread this mission of Krishna consciousness to the English-speaking people. Although Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati had a very powerful Gaudiya Math and many sannyasis and preaching was going on, Prabhupada felt that as a householder he was not able to give his full dedication, attention. He was taking care of family, but at the same time doing business, not for the sake of doing business, but for the purpose of printing back to Godhead or giving guidance to the fallen conditioned souls. Prabhupada was very concerned. So in the, I think the middle 50s or early 50s, when was he in Jhansi? In 53? In 53? Anyway, there's so much description of many things, but Srila Prabhupada formed the League of Devotees in Jhansi, and he had many advertisements to bring 40 educated students to learn the science of Bhagavad-Gita and travel internationally to spread Krishna consciousness. Although he had very broad and enthusiastically had visions of spreading Krishna consciousness throughout the world, it seemed as though when Krishna took his business away, yasyaham anugrihami, that he loved Prabhupada very much. But Srila Prabhupada was desperately trying to have a foothold of spreading Krishna consciousness and making Back to Godhead as popular as Time magazine, or they had some very popular magazines at that time. But the Jhansi adventure did not fructify, and Srila Prabhupada was also invited to help Bhakti Saranga in his math in Delhi to help with the printing of Sajantoshani, and Prabhupada was doing editorial work for Keshava Maharaj in his papers as well, magazines. And no matter how much effort and energy Prabhupada put forward, it seemed as though there were so many obstacles. Going to writing himself, taking for printing purposes, all the printers were amazed. Why is it you're endeavoring with such enthusiasm to print these magazines? He said, out of duty for my spiritual master. And he would walk. He wouldn't even take the rickshaw. And he was basically poverty-stricken, had no place to live in Delhi, and out in the heat, distributing Back to Godhead magazines. And it seemed as though he's making such a huge endeavor with a big hopeful dream, but he was totally penniless. And although some were something cooperative with Prabhupada, but most people were too busy making money for eat, sleep, and enjoy this material world. Anyway, there's so much more to say, but I'd like to read. It's presented in a very wonderful way, and it's up on the board as well if you want to follow along. On the disappearance day of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, Abai keenly felt separation from his spiritual master. He perfectly understood that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's instructions were more important than his physical presence, and that, in fact, the spiritual master was present within his instructions. In this way, Abai had always been with his spiritual master. Yet, on this annual day, Abai could not help feeling lost. He remembered how in 1932 he had been a grihastha and a new disciple. At that time, he had not been free to do as much service as now. Yet it had been in those years that he had been able to see his spiritual master, offer obeisances before him, eat the remnants of his prasadam, walk beside him, hear his voice, receive personal guidance. Abai thought of their meetings together. How powerful had been Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's mission. His presses had been running day and night, printing magazines, books, the daily Nadia, Prakash. And Europe had been a promising new preaching field, with Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, Saraswati Thakur at the helm. The Gaudiya Math had entered into battle against Maya's forces. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta had made all his disciples unafraid. Abai had always been eager to serve his spiritual master, to serve within the Gaudiya Math, with his headquarters in Calcutta. But exactly how he would serve had never been clear to him until his last letter from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. Abai looked back on more than 20 years since his spiritual master's disappearance. The Gaudiya Math had been undone by its leaders, and everyone else had scattered like leaves in a storm. It was an unspeakable loss. And it was an old story how the big sannyasis had disregarded their spiritual master's instructions and had intrigued, disputed, litigated, violent party factions, false leaders claiming to be world acharya. And which party had been right? No, both had been wrong. All wrong, because the Gaudiya Math had disintegrated. Now there were dozens of little maths and no preaching, no real preaching as before. When he, Singha Guru, had cast fear into the Mayavadis, he led an army of young, powerful preachers to march throughout India and the world. And the greatest sufferers of the Gaudiya Math's dissolution were the people, the non-devotees, who had little hope of being delivered from the batterings of Maya. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati had begun a spiritual revolution, but that revolution had now been overthrown by Maya. The scattered particles of the Gaudiya Math had settled quietly into self-satisfied, insular, almost impotent units, and it was the people in general who suffered. Abai groped after memories of his spiritual master. He felt secure in that his own relationship with Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati was intact. Continuing, yet he felt helpless. He was diligently pursuing his spiritual master's order to preach in English. Yet without his spiritual master's physical presence, he felt small and very much alone. At times like this, he questioned the wisdom of having left his family and business. Lamenting Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's absence and the fall of the Gaudiya Math, he composed the Bengali poem, Viraha Ashtaka. Srila Prabhupada, you are always compassionate towards the suffering jiva souls. On this occasion of your separation, I see only dejection. An unlimited ocean of mercy, cutting an illusion. Nityananda distributed an ocean of flood of love of God. The Jati Gosai stopped the stream. But coming yourself, Lord, you revealed this illusion. So once again, everyone was immersed in the flood of love, even one so fallen, insignificant, and sinful as I. On the strength of Lord Chaitanya's order, you sent all your servants door to door as gurus. There was preaching everywhere, from the sea to the Himalayas. Now in your absence, everything is darkness. Oh, Srila Prabhupada, you're always compassionate toward the suffering jiva souls. On this occasion of your separation, I see only dejection. In the same way that Advaita Prabhu brought Lord Gora, so did Bhaktivinoda pray. His enthusiasm brought you. On the strength of his enthusiasm, you came and made everyone understand that India is a holy land. One who takes his birth in the land of Bharat must make his life perfect and then preach to others. This Maha Mantra message you preached everywhere. Now in your absence, Lord, everything is darkness. Your ocean of compassion has again been stopped. This spear of great misery has cut through my heart. Without Lord Chaitanya's message, there's just confusion. Seeing this, all the Vaishnavas feel pangs of separation. The conditioned souls are all in darkness once again. They are searching for peace, but they are dying in an ocean of anxiety. Oh, Srila Prabhupada, you're always compassionate towards the suffering jiva souls. On this occasion of your separation, I see only dejection. Abai's was a dark view. The golden era of preaching that had flourished in the days of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati was no longer. By the influence of Maya, Abai wrote, now everything is darkness. All devotional instructions have been destroyed. Now everything has been reversed. Meditating on that great personality possessed of the divine power to save the entire world, Abai expressed his feelings of weakness and helplessness. Because of those not fixed in devotional service, many branches have spread all over. Your conclusive message did not touch the ear. Where will I get the strength for the Sankirtan movement? How could he, a tiny spiritual child, survive without his spiritual father? Now who would save the world, which was so much more oppressed than ever before? Just imagine, it was oppressed back then, how oppressed it is now. Just 60 years, 70 years later, it's just unbelievable how crazy things are. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta had said that a dead man could not preach. Only one with life could preach. As long as Abai and others could deeply regret the Gaudiya Math's failure, there was still life and still hope. If everyone obtained this right and went out and made disciples, then the suffering souls in the world could be saved. It was useless to cry over what his godbrothers had done, yet in seeing and resenting it, Abai found within the pain of what might have been a continuing spark of what still might be. Abai sent this poem and the Vrindavan Bhajan to Keshav Maharaj, who published them in the Gaudiya Patrika. One night, Abai had a striking dream, the same dream he had several times before during his days as a householder. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati appeared just as Abai had known him, the tall, scholarly sannyasi, coming directly from the spiritual world, from Krishna's personal entourage. He called to Abai and indicated that he should follow. Repeatedly he called in motion. He was asking Abai to take sannyas. Come, he urged, become a sannyasi. Abai awoke in a state of wonder. He thought of this instruction as another feature of the original instruction of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati had given him at their first meeting in Calcutta, the same instruction that his spiritual master had later solidified in a letter, become an English preacher, and spread Krishna consciousness throughout the Western world. Sannyas was for that end. Otherwise, why would his spiritual master have asked him to accept it? By reason that his spiritual master was saying, now take sannyas and you will actually be able to accomplish this mission. Formerly the time was not right. Abai deliberated cautiously. By accepting sannyas, a Vaishnava dedicates his mind, or his body, mind, and words totally to the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, renouncing all other engagements. He was doing that already. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati had offered sannyas to his leading disciples so that they could continue his mission. They hadn't done it. Preaching in the West had proved perilous even for the Gaudiya Math's most recognized sannyasis. How could he, a mere householder, presume he could succeed where the others had failed? He was hesitant. The helpless, incapable feeling he had expressed in his Viraha Ashtaka was there. But now his spiritual master was beckoning him over all other considerations, even over natural humility. Now, although he was elderly and alone, the desire to preach, just as his spiritual master had preached, remained within him. A fierce thought sometimes quietly expressed determination. The Vedic standard and the example set by the previous acharyas was that if one wanted to lead a preaching movement, sannyas was required. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta had taken sannyas to facilitate his missionary work. Lord Chaitanya had taken sannyas to further the Sankirtan movement. Of course, Lord Chaitanya was the supreme personality, but when his young students had been disrespectful towards him, treating him as an ordinary man, he had taken sannyas. Because a sannyasi is automatically respected. Lord Chaitanya's acceptance of sannyas was a calculated tactic. As soon as he began traveling throughout India as a sannyasi, he immediately attracted thousands of followers to the Sankirtan movement. Knowing that many cheaters would accept the saffron dress and abuse the respect given to sannyasis, Lord Chaitanya had advised against accepting sannyas in the age of Kali. He knew that cheaters in the guise of sadhus would act immorally, accumulate funds for their own sense gratification, and make many followers simply to enhance their own prestige. Posing as swamis, they could cheat the public because the people in Kali Yuga are unable to follow the rules and regulations of sannyas. Lord Chaitanya had recommended that they simply chant Hare Krishna. However, if a person could actually follow the rules, and especially if he had to spread the Sankirtan movement, sannyas was necessary. Abai first had to approach one of his godbrothers for permission. He decided to turn to Bhakti Vilas Tirtha Maharaj, formerly Kunja Bihari, the leader of the Chaitanya Math in Calcutta. Abai still thought of the Chaitanya Math as the headquarters of his spiritual master's mission. During the heated legal disputes, the Chaitanya Math had been the most prized acquisition. And since 1948, it had been under the legal ownership of Bhakti Vilas Tirtha Maharaj. Now, although each sannyasi had his own place or places, the Chaitanya Math and Bhakti Vilas Tirtha Maharaj legally represented the Gaudiya Math entity. Abai felt that if he were to take sannyas and go preach in America, he should give the Chaitanya Math the first opportunity to support his work. In April 1959, everyone remembers where you were in 1959? I was still in Macedonia. Abai wrote to Tirtha Maharaj, inquiring about sannyas as well as about the Chaitanya Math's printing some of his manuscripts. And since no one was going abroad, he volunteered to do so on behalf of the Chaitanya Math. Bhaktivilas Tirtha Maharaj replied that Abai should first join the Chaitanya Math. He mentioned the strife that still lingered. Those who are acting against Chaitanya Math, they are motivated by their individual ambitions. Anyone who is against the Chaitanya Math, he said, was acting illogically and against the instructions of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. So according to Tirtha Maharaj, the thing for Abai to do, the thing he had neglected to do for so many years, was to join the Chaitanya Math and act under his direction. Tirtha Maharaj mentioned several members of the Chaitanya Math who had recently accepted the sannyas order, and he said that Abai could also become one in time. He invited Abai to come reside at the Chaitanya Math. The houses that we have, there are rooms that are airy and well lit. We will treat you exclusively. There won't be any difficulty. We will take care that no inconveniences are caused. But as for printing books, we are eagerly awaiting to print the books of Sat Sandarbha, Vedanta, based on devotional service, many other rare books by the Goswamis. First, we will print them. Books written by you will be checked by the editorial staff, and if the funds can be raised, then they can be printed according to priority. The books will be printed only if they are favorable for the service of the Chaitanya Math. Therefore, if the fund is raised, then there is a plan to go abroad as well. Abai was not encouraged. The main difficulty he felt was the Chaitanya Math's shortage of funds. Srila Prabhupada, I was working with my broken typewriter. I went to our Tirtha Maharaj. You give me a room and print my books. Give me some money, I will join you. I had thought this is Guru Maharaj's institution. He did not say no, but the printing of books was a difficult task for him. He had no money. He was hardly collecting for maintaining. Printing of books is a big job, and there's no guarantee of sale. Without printing books and going to the West, sannyas did not have meaning for Abai. And who knew when Tirtha Maharaj would sanction his taking sannyas? There was no point in going to Calcutta just to reside in an airy, well-lit room. That he had already in Vrindavan. Abai wrote back to Tirtha Maharaj mentioning his direct order from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati to preach to the English-speaking people. He wanted to go to the West right away, and he had thought that Chaitanya Math would welcome his offer. Both Abai and Tirtha Maharaj had their responsibilities, but perhaps they could carry out the desire of their spiritual master. Abai asked Tirtha Maharaj to reconsider. On May 7th, 1959, Bhaktivilas Tirtha Maharaj wrote back, my suggestion is don't make any hasty decisions. For the time being, you stay with us and engage yourself in the service of the society and then accept Tridanda, sannyas. The purpose of accepting Tridanda is to serve the society. If that is your desire, then Sri Chaitanya Math will decide about your going to America to preach and make all the arrangements. It can never be the principle of the society to let one act according to his individual attempt or desire. The society will decide after consulting with the heads what is to be done by whom. This is what I want to say. First of all, it is necessary to identify oneself with the society. In order to preach in America or in other foreign countries, it is important to have a dignified organization in the background. And secondly, it is necessary to establish oneself in India before going to preach in the foreign countries. Now, it is that there are no conferences or meetings in the West as before. Communication is done through the media of television. Abai could understand the needs and priorities of the Chaitanya Math, but he could not allow them to overrule what he considered the highest mandate, preaching, as Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati had ordered. Abai had offered his services to the leaders of the Chaitanya Math, thinking they might also see things his way. He thought that with the world's crying need for Krishna consciousness staring them in the face, they might see that this Abai Babu was convinced and enthusiastic, and so should be sent right away with whatever he required. But they had other priorities. Abai next turned to Keshav Maharaj in Mathura. And Keshav Maharaj told Abai to take sannyas immediately. After corresponding with Tirtha Maharaj, Abai had felt some uncertainty about accepting sannyas. And now that he was being encouraged so strongly, he resisted. But Keshav Maharaj was insistent. Srila Prabhupada. I was sitting alone in Vrindavan, writing. My godbrother insisted to me, Bhakti-Vedanta Prabhu, you must do it. Without accepting the renounced order of life, nobody can become a preacher. So he insisted. Not he insisted, practically my spiritual master insisted. He wanted me to become a preacher. So he forced me through his godbrother. You accept. So unwillingly, I accepted. Many times Prabhupada mentioned he did not want to take sannyas. That's not his ambition, but he was forced by his spiritual master to take sannyas. Keshavaji Gaudiya Math was located in the midst of one of Mathura's downtown bazaars. Its main entrance, an arched doorway, led into a courtyard open to the sky through a metal grating above. The architecture was similar to that of the Vangshi Gopalji temple. The atmosphere was secluded, as in a monastery. Abai was a familiar, welcome figure here. He had lived here, written and studied in the library here, edited the Gaudiya Patrika, and donated the deity of Lord Chaitanya, who stood on the altar beside the deities of Radha and Krishna, Sri Sri Radha Vinod Viharaji. But his visit during September of 1959 was not an ordinary one. He entered the math dressed in white, Abai Babu, but he would soon be leaving dressed in saffron, a Swami. Abai had been living as a renunciate for 9 years. There was no need for him to observe a ceremony or to proclaim himself a sadhu by changing to saffron dress. But it was the parampara system that a man take Tridandi sannyas at the end of his life. He was aware of the cheating sannyasis. Even in Vrindavan, he had seen so-called sadhus who did not preach, but simply spent their days hunting for chapatis. Some swamis of Vrindavan even indulge illicitly in what they had supposedly come here to reject, sex life. Such persons were making a mockery of sannyas. And there were the caste Goswamis also, who lived like ordinary householders, running temples as a business to support their families and accepting honor and donations from the public on the false basis of birth. Abai knew of these abuses of sannyas, but he also knew the real purpose of sannyas. Sannyas was for preaching. On the morning of September 17th, 1959, in the 50 by 20 foot Didi room on the second floor of the Keshavaji Math, a group of devotees sat before the deities of Radha and Krishna and Lord Chaitanya. The deities were colorfully dressed in royal clothing and silver crowns. Radharani's right hand faced palm forward in benediction for the worshipper. At her side, her left hand held a flower for Krishna. Krishna stood like a dancer, placing his right leg in a casual tiptoe pose before his left, playing his long silver flute, which he held gracefully to his red lips. His long black hair reached down past his shoulders, and the garland of marigolds around his neck reached down to his knees. On his right stood the deity of Lord Chaitanya, his right arm raised, left arm at his side, his body straight, feet together. He was a soft, golden color. He had large eyes and well-formed red mouth and straight black hair down to his shoulders. One level below the deities were pictures of the spiritual masters in disciplic succession: Jagannath Das Babaji, Bhakti Vinod Thakur, Gorakishore Das Babaji, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati, Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Maharaj. Abai sat on a mat of kusha grass beside 90-year-old Sanatan, also to receive sannyas that day. Sitting opposite the two candidates, Narayan Maharaj, Keshav Maharaj's disciple, prepared to conduct the ceremony of mantras and offerings of grains and ghee into the fire. Akinchana Krishnadas Babaji, Abai's godbrother, known for sweet singing, played mridanga and sang Vaishnav bhajans. Sitting on a raised asana, His Holiness Keshav Maharaj presided. Since there had been no notices or invitations, only the maths, few residents attended. Narayan Maharaj chanted the required mantras and then sat back silently while Keshav Maharaj lectured. Then, to everyone's surprise, Keshav Maharaj asked Abai to speak. Abai had not expected this. As he looked around at the gathering of devotees, he understood that the common language was Hindi. Only Keshav Maharaj and a few others spoke English, yet he knew he must speak in English. After Abai's speech, each initiate received his sannyas danda, the traditional head-high staff made of 4 bamboo rods, bound together and completely enwrapped in saffron cloth. They were given their sannyas garments, 1 piece of saffron cloth for a dhoti, 1 for a top piece, and 2 stripes for underwear. They also received tulsi neck beads and the sannyas mantra. Keshav Maharaj said that Abai would now be known as Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj. And that Sanatan would be Muni Maharaj. After the ceremony, the 2 new sannyasis posed for a photo standing on either side of their sannyas guru who sat in a chair. Keshav Maharaj didn't impose any strictures on Abai. He simply encouraged him to go on preaching. Yet Abai knew that to become A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami did not mean merely that he was giving up family, home comforts, and business that he had done 5 years ago. Changing from white cloth to saffron cloth for Abai Babu to Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj had a special significance. It was the mandate he had required, the irrevocable commitment. Now it was only a matter of time for Bhaktivedanta Swami would travel to the west as Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati had ordained. This was Bhaktivedanta Swami's realization of his new sannyas status. The Gaudiya Patrika's account of the sannyas initiation included a biographical sketch of Srimad Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj listing the major events of his life. The article concluded, Seeing his enthusiasm and ability to write articles in Hindi, English, and Bengali, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Maharaj gave him the instruction to take Tridandi Sannyas. For nearly 1 year, he had been ready to accept sannyas. In the month of Bhadra, on the day on which Vishwarup accepted sannyas, Bhaktivedanta Swami at the Sri Keshavaji Gaudiya Math accepted sannyas from the founder of the Vedanta Samiti, Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Maharaj. Seeing him accept his ashram of renunciation, seeing this pastime of accepting the renounced order of life, we have attained great affection and enthusiasm. His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. I have a few more clips that I wanted to read that were just so much, couldn't really put it all together. This is chapter 10, this momentous hour of need. Yeah, our capacity? Huh? Anyway, I have something here. Our capacity of presenting the matter in adequate language, specifically a foreign language, will certainly fail, and there may be so many literary discrepancies in spite of our honest attempt to present it in the proper way. But we are sure that with our all faults in this connection, the seriousness of the subject matter will be taken into consideration, and the leaders of the society will still accept this on account of its being an honest attempt for glorifying the Almighty Great, so much now badly needed. Let me see, I was there. You're in the next portion now? Okay, this is a little bit more. Bhaktivedanta Swami, accompanied by some of the Keshavaji Math devotees, made a short preaching tour of Agra, Kanpur, Jhansi, and Delhi, but he was soon back in his own place at the Vangshi Gopalji temple. No one called him a Bhai Babu any longer. Even amongst friends, it was Swamiji or Maharaj. And people often addressed him as Swami Bhaktivedantaji, Swami Maharaj, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami. People readily recognized him as a sadhu and offered respect. Yet his basic problems remained. He wanted to write and print, but he had no money. He wanted to broadcast the message of Godhead, but few were willing to listen. Such things hadn't been changed by his becoming a Swami. When a librarian advised Bhaktivedanta Swami to write books, they were permanent, whereas newspapers were read once and thrown away. He took it that his spiritual master was speaking through this person. Then an army or Indian army officer who liked back to God had suggested the same thing. Bhaktivedanta Swami took it as a revelation from his spiritual master. As a dependent servant, constantly meditating on the desires of his transcendental master and seeking his guidance, Bhaktivedanta Swami felt his spiritual master's reciprocal blessings and personal presence. More and more, he was feeling confidential contact with Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, and now he was feeling an inspiration to write books. He considered Srimad Bhagavatam because it was the most important and authoritative Vaishnava scripture. Although Bhagavad-Gita was the essence of all Vedic knowledge presented in a brief ABC fashion, Srimad Bhagavatam was elaborate, and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati and Bhaktivinoda Thakur had both written Bengali commentaries on the Bhagavatam. In fact, most of the great Vaishnavacharyas of the past had commented on Srimad Bhagavatam. Lord Chaitanya himself had recommended Srimad Bhagavatam as a spotless Vedic literature. An English translation and commentary for this book could one day change the hearts of the entire world. And if he could publish even a few books his preaching would be enhanced. He could go abroad with confidence and not appear empty-handed. Then there's description of how Prabhupada went to Radha Damodar temple. But I have one more portion I'd like to read. In February, yes, okay, you got it. In February of 1961, on Vyasa Puja Day, the anniversary of the appearance of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, Bhaktivedanta Swami was again in Vrindavan. In honor of their spiritual master, some of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's disciples had gathered, offered flowers before his picture, and held congregational chanting in the temple. But Bhaktivedanta Swami thought that they should be doing much more than that. They should be planning and executing the worldwide preaching mission that Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati had desired. Instead, they were a gathering of independent individuals, each with his own small idea, each maintaining a small center or living at a center, but with no world programs, not even a program for India. Most of them had no plans or vision beyond their own bodily maintenance. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati had asked for a governing body to conduct his movement, but there was no governing body, and practically there was no movement. Some who had fought bitterly were again on speaking terms and feared that any sudden organizational attempts might simply stir up old animosities. At least they could gather together and make an offering to their spiritual master. Amongst his godbrothers, Bhaktivedanta Swami was a junior sannyasi. Although a recognized writer and editor, he had no temple or followers. Yet he knew he was trying to follow Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. He saw himself helpless and alone against the vast force. His godbrothers were not an army united against Maya's forces, but were more like apathetic monks, growing old, holding on to religious principles and rituals, devoid of life. How could they gather to worship their spiritual master without distressfully admitting their failure and in the spirit of better late than never trying to rectify it? Since the custom on Vyasa Puja Day was for each disciple to write an offering glorifying his spiritual master and to share it within the assembly of godbrothers, Bhaktivedanta Swami wrote an offering more like an explosion than a eulogy and humbly placed it before his godbrothers for their response. Better hang on, it's pretty powerful. Even now, my godbrothers, you return here on the order of our master, and together we engage in this puja. But simply a festival of flowers and fruits does not constitute worship. The one who serves the message of the Guru really worships him. Oh, shame. My dear brothers, aren't you embarrassed? In the matter of businessmen, you increase your disciples. Our master said to preach. Let the neophytes remain inside the temple and simply ring the bells. But just take a good look at the terrible situation that has arisen. Everyone has become a sense enjoyer and has given up preaching. From the seas across the earth, penetrate the universal shell, come together and preach this Krishna consciousness. Then our master's service will be in proper order. Make your promise today. Give up all your politics and diplomacy. If the disciples of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati could join and preach together, there was every chance that they could create a spiritual revolution within the sinful world. That had been the hope of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, and Bhaktivedanta Swami expressed that hope in his Vyasa Puja offering. When will that day come when the temple will be established in every house and every corner of the world? When will the High Court judge be a Gaudiya Vaishnava with tilak beautifully decorating his forehead? When will a Vaishnava winning votes to elect president of the land and the preaching be spread everywhere? As he read the poem, its truth exploding in the midst of the gathering of aging sannyasis, some approved and some were incensed. Their meeting, however, took no new direction. They did not sit down together and plan as he had pleaded. Swami Maharaja's poem was taken as another poetic expression or as an opinion. The God brothers were inclined to let the old wounds heal with the passing of time, to go back over the whole thing again and reconstruct the mission as it had been before, when Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati had been present, and to attempt all those ambitious programs. How was it possible? They were getting old. Some did not want to leave the shelter of Vrindavan. They would worship Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati within the holy Dham. If Bhaktivedanta Swami could do something more, they'll let him go ahead and try. Bhaktivedanta Swami returned to Keshigarh, thoughtful. For many years he had been unable to take a leading part in the mission because of family commitments. 1935 in Bombay, his godbrothers had even asked him to be the president of the Math there. But Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati had said that it was not necessary that Abhay Charan join them. He would come in his own way. Now, by the grace of his spiritual master, he was ready to fulfill the meaning of sannyas. The Krishna-conscious world he had described in his poem was not a utopia, presented merely to incite his godbrothers, a dreamer's talk of the impossible. It was possible, but in any case, he had to write and print Krishna-conscious books and preach abroad. It was what Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati wanted, and if his godbrothers would not do it jointly, then he would do it. His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki. So just imagine the intensity of wanting to please his spiritual master for spreading Krishna consciousness, unwillingly taking sannyas in a very humble setting. I was watching Prabhupada. He was with his disciples again in Calcutta, and they were walking around one park. And at one time, 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, and then devotees started like drifting off and couldn't keep up with Srila Prabhupada, although he was elderly. And then after the next time around, Prabhupada looked, there's only three or four devotees left. He said, just see how easily they give up. Just see how easily they give up. So that message that we give up so easily to, be poverty-stricken and to struggle the way Srila Prabhupada did for spreading Krishna consciousness was resolute determination. Vyavasayatmika buddhi rekeha kurunandana. He was fixed. And despite all the challenges and so-called failures, he never lost his determination. And miraculously, somehow or other, Prabhupada was also amazed. How did this Krishna consciousness spread? Instead of having 40 young disciples learning to bring to the West, he planted Krishna consciousness starting from the United States, then Canada, then England, then Europe, then Africa, then Australia, then India. Again, it exploded when the Indian population saw that others are taking very seriously this Vedic culture, these teachings of Bhagavad-Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam and the purpose of life. Why we are not seeing, we're missing this treasure. So Srila Prabhupada, under the order of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, took sannyas for the purpose of spreading Krishna consciousness. He also told one other story of someone took some curd and put it in the lake, hoping that he could turn the whole lake into yogurt. And so that's impossible. It's like, Prabhupada going to the West is an elderly person with his rubber shoes and no clothes practically. And Prabhupada said, but what if? What if it does that little bit of effort, you know? So Prabhupada was amazed how his efforts have turned a small, apparently insignificant person who is obviously the most significant pure devotee of the Lord, Shakya Vaishavatar, empowered by Krishna to spread Krishna consciousness, how he took this order of his spiritual master so humbly and so seriously that he became fully empowered, and now Krishna consciousness is spreading everywhere. His Divine Grace A.C. Bhakti-Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Anyone would like to say something? Any serial? Yes, please.
Wonderful explanation there. I was amazed when I saw how Prabhupada had, more than any of the God brothers, really wanted to put forth the meaning of the mission of Gaudiya Math, because before Bhaktisiddhanta passed away, he wrote by hand that he will form a governing body and he will work cooperatively. So when I was in Mayapur on March 2nd, 72, when Prabhupada did the cornerstone, it was brilliant. He brought all of his God brothers together. And he didn't ask them. He said, now that we're together, we'll stay together. The disciples of Bhaktisiddhanta. And we'll do like our spiritual master wanted. Instead of working as so many splinter groups, we'll form a governing body, and from today forward, we'll work as one movement. He just said, they all went, Jai! They thought, well, that means someone work together. But they never followed through. I guess they gave up.
Also, Srila Prabhupada says, I have men, I have buses, all my governors, you're all experienced preachers. You lead them. I'll give you the finances, the buses, the men, but no one would take that responsibility. It's not easy to understand or fathom what Srila Prabhupada has accomplished. Not that he wanted to do it alone. He always wanted to, first of all, please his Guru Maharaj and work together with his God brother. He tried very hard. And
they agreed and didn't do, but none of them came up with an argument against forming a governing body together, because there wasn't an argument.
well, the people in this Kali Yuga are all suffering. We're also part of those suffering souls, and because of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's attempts, so much preaching was going on, but then who suffered from the Gaudiya Math dispersing is all the people who are suffering in Kali Yuga. So Prabhupada always had an eye for the suffering. He would always say, Harinama, Harinama, Harinama eva kevalam. That only by chanting the holy name in this Kali Yuga can one achieve perfection. So he insisted, book distribution. And today's a bit we're doing Bhadra Purnima, many books are being distributed. It says one who gives the Srimad Bhagavatam to others on such a holy day, he's guaranteed going back home, back to Godhead. So it's just a wonderful opportunity to see that all the efforts of Krishna, Vyasadeva, Narada Muni, Lord Brahma, the whole Guru Parampara, it's all empowered and being represented by Prabhupada in his books. And so we should daily study Srimad Bhagavatam, and we should become active. Sometimes people say, oh yeah, I love Prabhupada. I say, well, come to the Guru Puja, come and see the deities, come and preach, dance with the devotees. Without association of devotees, one is really living in hallucination. Because Maya, what is that verse? Daivi Hesha Gunamayi Mama Maya Daratya Mame Vaye Prapajante Mayame Tantarantite. And association with devotees means we're sitting together hearing the glories of Krishna, we're chanting the glories of the spiritual master who's a representative of Krishna, and we're doing our duties of not only taking care of the deities, serving prasadam, but going out and preaching Krishna consciousness, taking the responsibilities. So we should all take responsibilities on behalf of Srila Prabhupada, he put forward so much endeavor, so we should not so easily give up. If we have some shortcomings, more determination, Krishna will reveal, Krishna will get rid of those challenges which are keeping us. And we should not absorb our mind in politics or this and that, fault finding, because really we can stay so busy in our day of hearing and chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. As Prabhupada did, he would rise early in the morning, even Vrindavan, translate, then spend the next couple hours chanting his japa nicely. And this is the life, and we're all fortunate to be here in Sri Vrindavan Dham. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. That whole thing is not easy.
Only one paragraph missing.
Only one.
Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama